What's up, fantasy managers? I'm a first-round draft pick, and you can tell because when the light shines bright, I gotta put on the shade so I can still see what's in front of me. The NFL draft was this weekend. I'll talk about 10 players' fantasy value that either increased or decreased because of the NFL draft. I know you're interested, so stick around for 7 seconds.
You can do it!
What's up, fantasy managers? I am Jason, the lucky bastard youth want, recording from the West Coast, and this is the Fantasy Red Zone. Oh my gosh, that was horrible. I appreciate Tyler even more for being able to do that every time we record. Today, just call me Han because I'm doing this solo. Tyler's out there probably hanging out with TJ Husmanzada, so he won't be here, so I'm going to do this myself. It is draft day, draft weekend, and with the draft picks that happened in the past 3 days, there's going to be some fantasy winners and fantasy losers. I have 5 players from each with some honorable mentions at the end. So let's go ahead and get into it. First player I want to talk about, Marvin Harrison Jr., 4th overall pick from Ohio State. The Cardinals drafted one of the top wide receiver prospects that we've had in a while, and the Cardinals desperately needed a wide receiver, and they also lost Marquise Brown in the offseason. He didn't do the combine, Harrison, and he didn't do a pro day, but he still went 4th overall. He is 6'4", 205 pounds, projected to be better than his Hall of Famer dad. As long as Kyle Murray can stay healthy, then Harrison's going to burn man-to-man coverage every single time. He's going to be in my top 25 rankings. He's an instant starter. Another winner from this draft is Khalil Shakir. The Bills needed a wide receiver, and then they went and drafted Keon Coleman from Florida State with their first pick in the 2nd round. I like Coleman. He's a 3rd down dominator, and he's a red zone threat. But the Bills passed up, or they traded back, I think twice, if I remember, and they passed up on Brian Thomas Jr., Xaiver Worthy, and Xavier Legette, who I like more. So the Bills lost Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis in the offseason, which means the only wide receiver left with rapport with Josh Allen is Khalil Shakir. He finished the season with at least 100 receiving yards or a touchdown in his last 3 games. That's including the playoffs. With Joe Brady as OC, the Bills will likely run the ball more, but Khalil Shakir will remain Josh Allen's number 1 wide receiver. So that's something to think about going into the draft. So the next one are 2 players I want to talk about, and it's Aaron Rodgers and Breece, both being winners. The Jets, they actually used their brain, and they didn't draft tight end Brock Bauer. And instead, with the 10th overall pick, they drafted offensive lineman Alu Fashanu from Penn State. So dude, Aaron Rodgers, after 4 plays, had a season-ending injury. That offensive line for the Jets was one of the worst in the league. They were 30th in pass blocking win rate and 29th in run blocking win rate. There must be a focus to protect Aaron Rodgers, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and their star running back in Breece Hall. They did hit the free agency, and they got Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith, who were elite in their prime, but their ages combined are like the same age as my son's grandfather. So it's great that they drafted a lineman to protect Rodgers. And the good thing is, they didn't stop there. The Jets weren't done. In the first pick in the 3rd round, they drafted wide receiver from Western Kentucky, Malachi Corley. This guy's nickname was the Yak King. He led the FBS in Yak average as yards after catch per game and missed tackles in 2023. So this guy is running for a lot and breaking tackles. And this is your wide receiver, okay? If you haven't seen this dude, you should check him out on YouTube. He is the new Deebo Samuel. Just imagine 30 wide receiver screens to this guy and just let him run wild on the field. I have Aaron Rodgers ranked 13th, but I think I'm going to move him up some. And, Breece Hall, I have him ranked 2nd in running backs. He's going to stay there. Now, up next is Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC. He is considered the draft's crown jewel. And the Bears selected him, and the Bears have set up Caleb Williams to have early success in this upcoming season. Look what the Bears did. They have DJ Moore, who finished last season as wide receiver 6 with 8 touchdowns. And then they fucked around and found out that they could trade for Keenan Allen, who was wide receiver 3 before his injury in week 14 and had 7 touchdowns. Between Moore and Allen, they combined for 202 receptions. God damn, I said god damn. Then in free agency, they signed DeAndre Swift with $15 million guaranteed. And then with the 9th overall pick, they drafted one of the best wide receivers in the draft, Rome Odunze, who had 1,600 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns last year for Washington. The Bears have 3 number 1 wide receivers on their team. And Pro Football Network ranked the Bears' offensive line 10th heading into 2024 season. Plus, they also drafted an offensive tackle in the 3rd round, Kyren Angaji. Amagaji. I remember when I heard this, I was like, Angad, So it's Kyren Amgaji to buff up their offensive line even more. Caleb Williams can be this year's CJ Stroud, and you could get him with a late pick in the upcoming fantasy draft. Now, the last winner is Xaiver Worthy. So you're telling me the fastest player ever plays for a team coached by Andy Reid and has a future GOAT as their quarterback. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. Chiefs haven't filled their role when Tyreek left, but maybe Xaiver might be Worthy. Bro, if Hill is considered the cheetah, then maybe Worthy should be considered the peregrine falcon, the fastest bird alive. Because when they dive, they could go like the way they dive after the prey. It's like going 200 miles per hour. And that could be like I don't know. I really messed that up. Let me know in the comments what you think about the peregrine falcon as his nickname. So Tyreek Hill's rookie year stats, all right? 61 receptions, 568 yards, and 6 touchdowns, and that was good enough for wide receiver 25 in PPR formats. That was also with Alex Smith as quarterback. In 2018, with Patrick Mahomes' first year as a starter, he had 87, 1,400, and 12 touchdowns, and finished as wide receiver 3. So you can see the potential for Xaiver Worthy in that offense. All he needs to do is outrun defenders and catch those 60-yard deep balls from Patrick Mahomes. But he needs to work on his catching, as drop balls have been an issue for him in the past 2 years, and we all know how that affected the Kansas City Chiefs last season. But I believe you can roll the dice on Xaiver Worthy. If you're still here and if you want more videos in the future, make sure to hit the subscribe so every time a video comes out, you can see it, like it, leave a comment, do whatever you want. We appreciate it. So if there's winners from an NFL draft, there's going to be losers. Let's talk about the losers now. I want to talk about the Bears wide receivers. For example, this is the best way I can think about it. Have you ever been to a birthday party as a child and your whole classroom was invited, but the parents only bought 2 fucking medium pizzas and you only got 1 piece of pizza and you still had to share your pepperoni equally amongst the children? There's too many mouths to feed and not enough pizzas. That's basically what I'm getting at. And this is going to be the story for the Bears wide receiver core for the entire season. Last season, Keenan Allen had 150 targets. DJ Moore had 136 targets. And then they drafted a wide receiver in the top 10 who is a contested catch wizard. These targets will not continue in 2024. Plus, the Bears are a run-first team. They ran the ball second most last season on 31 attempts per game. If you're still wanting to chase a wide receiver from the Bears, I would suggest DJ Moore, because Caleb Williams craves the big plays, and Moore has big play ability. Now, this next fantasy loser, it's no knock to him. He could be a good wide receiver. From what I've seen on tape, it's Malik Nabers from LSU. And as of April 25th, he is a Giants wide receiver 1, and it's well-deserved because he is a play-making machine. But the issues are with the quarterback play and the horrible offensive line. Last season, the Giants drafted Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. He's a very fast wide receiver, but he only ended up with 23 receptions and 0 touchdowns. Now, did you know Daniel Jones has not thrown for more than 15 passing touchdowns in the last 4 years? Yeah, that's pretty bad. But he's not given enough time to let the wide receivers run their routes. The Giants were 24th in pass block win rate and gave up 85 sacks last year. That was number one. And Carolina was second with close to 64. That's a huge margin between sacks. They have to fix that offensive line. Malik Nabers won't have fantasy value until they could give their quarterback time to throw the ball. Now, this next fantasy loser, I actually saw him kind of creeping up in the ranks during this offseason, but that would be no more. Chuba Hubbard, he finished 2023 as running back 27, but spent most of the year sharing the load with that one guy the Panthers spent money on, Miles Sanders. When he gained more responsibility from weeks 12 through 18, he was running back 11. He helped people win some leagues because he was cheap to get. But the coaching staff apparently has no trust, as they drafted Jonathan Brooks in the 2nd round, running back from Texas. He was the first running back off the board. He has potential to play both running and playing downs. That is the same role as Chuba Hubbard had last year, and now Hubbard is battling touches with arguably the best running back in the class. And the Panthers ended up trading up to get Jonathan Brooks. So I see Chuba Hubbard's value definitely going down after this draft pick. Now, this fantasy loser I'm kind of iffy about, but I felt like I should still throw it out there, and it's James Conner. The guy who ended the season as running back 18 and definitely won Fantasy Managers Championships last year because he averaged 22 points since week 13 and on. Every year he outplays his ADP, and he has never had a true backup until now. The Cardinals drafted Trey Benson from Florida State early in the 3rd round, and Benson is likely the only true bell cow in this draft. He's 6'1", 223 pounds, which matches James Conner. He dealt with a terrible leg injury early in college, but in 2023, he totaled 15 touchdowns. He's going to be the new James Conner eventually, but you can imagine Conner will lose some opportunities to Benson. I'll probably push James Conner outside my top 20 for rankings for fantasy. And so this next guy, a quarterback, he's probably he has to be the biggest fantasy loser of this draft. And it's not his fault at all, but it's Michael Penix Jr. The Falcons used the 8th pick to draft a player they will not use for the next 4 years because they just signed Kirk Cousins at free agency. I will read you Kirk Cousins' contract, all right? 4-year, $180 million. He will earn $62 million in 2024, and there's a no trade clause. And if he gets cut before 2025, the Falcons will have $40 million of dead money. Penix is basically hoping for an injury so he could get some playing time, which sucks. That sucks. Even owner Arthur Blank, there's a video of him talking to the GM, and he's sitting there scratching his head like, hey, did we just fuck up getting this guy? And you can see the GM trying to explain it, and Arthur Blank's just like, anyways, it's a shitty situation. So Penix will be 24 years old on May 8th. And so when Kirk Cousins' contract runs out in 4 years, when he takes that starting quarterback role position, he will be 28 years old, which is similar to Brandon Whedon's age when he became the starter for the Cleveland Browns, and we saw how that turned out. The Falcons may have just ruined Michael Penix Jr. Some quick things, like something to think about. I got 3 notes here, and one of them is Brian Thomas Jr. He went to the Jaguars. Do the whole county. They worked on their O-line this offseason, which was desperately needed, so hopefully Trevor Lawrence has a better year. Thomas can outperform Gabe Davis, but is a 3rd option on the team behind Christian Kirk and their tight end, Evan Ingram. Also, Rams have selected running back Blake Corum from Michigan. He is the all-time and single-season record holder for most rushing touchdowns at Michigan. He has a nose for the end zone, and now he's going to be in the same backfield as Kyren Williams. After this, I moved Jonathan Taylor above Kyren Williams in my rankings. But it could mean nothing. You know, we saw them share a backfield, with Kyren Williams share a backfield with Royce Freeman last year and Cam Akers. But this is a little bit different because they went out and drafted this guy. So we'll see. But I did move Jonathan Taylor above Kyren Williams now. And then the last weird thing that I saw was that the Raiders drafted this year's top tight end, Brock Bauer from Georgia, a year after they drafted Michael Mayer. So not sure what this means. I feel like it's a wasted pick because they don't run a system that can support 2 tight ends. So I don't know what Antonio Pierce is doing. I don't know. All right, everybody. That's the winners and losers of the NFL draft for fantasy value. I hope you had a good time. I had a good time. I haven't done a solo video in a while, and I feel like it was dusting off the cobwebs and doing what I needed to do to get this done. Tyler had a mock draft video. It was pre-draft. If you guys want to know how it turned out, make sure to click the video here or here, one of them. But click it. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, later.